from the Catholic Underground.
Today on the show, we shed some light on the Epiphany. Thank you. We talk Peter Jackson's latest projects, we rant a little bit on science, and we talk New Year's resolutions for your parish. Our picks of the week and so much more. The Catholic Underground starts now. Alrighty, as the cold descends upon the United States, get out your radios and warm up your living rooms. It's time for the Catholic Underground, your weekly Catholic guide to the digital continent. It's episode number 252. I'm Father Chris Decker. If you are listening live, you can join us at catholicunderground.tv and chat with us. A special welcome to all of you who are joining us in this new year. Joining me this week, we've got Father Ryan Humphreys. He is the rector of the Minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in historic Natchitoches, Louisiana. Hello, Father.
Hello, world.
Have you got your scarf over there in beautiful Natchitoches?
I really don't, but thanks for asking.
We're bescarved today. Kathleen Lee, she's got her scarf on. She's a teacher at St. Joseph's Academy in Baton Rouge. She is our licensed and bescarved faith ninja.
Here I am.
There she is. Jeff Blackwell is the technical director of the CU. He's the commandant of the Jeff Star 1 near-Earth orbit satellite, which has its own heating coils in it.
That's right.
And hey, Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I broke the camera, but I'm doing great.
Yeah, we're working on it. It's a new year. Yeah. And Mary Kate Taylor, whom you all know as the silent sentinel in the video cave, she's with us as well. And I bet she's got a scarf that she could also don, too. Yeah, she probably could. Because I bet I'm sure that there are some very fashion-forward folks here at the Catholic Underground. You see, Kathleen.
I have several.
That's right.
I'm a scarf connoisseur.
Oh, that means you eat the scarves, right?
I am a scarf collector.
Aficionado, I believe, would be the
That would be a better one.
That's
I
right.
thought that was a scarf carnivore.
No, it's a scarfivore. Yeah, maybe that's where we get the verb scarf. Anyway, happy Epiphany, everybody.
Yay.
Whew, that was close. We almost went off the
almost
rails
lost
a
it.
little too early. Yeah. Well, of course, Epiphany is this great season, and our listeners in the Eastern Catholic world and the Eastern Orthodox world, Epiphany is really kind of the big thing, right, Father? It's Christmas for us here in the West, but for many, it's actually the Feast of the Epiphany when the gifts are laid before Christ and He manifests Himself to the world, that they celebrate the gift giving. Is that right?
Right, and especially, it's kind of ironically backwards because remember that most of the people in the East are descendants of the chosen people, of the Israelites.
Yeah.
And we are the pagan Gentiles over here in the West. And of course, this is the moment that Christ reveals Himself to the pagan Gentiles. And so in a certain sense, it's really a feast of the non-chosen people. So we've kind of got it backwards where we should take Epiphany more seriously. But it is what it is. Yeah, for the Eastern churches, especially the Eastern Orthodox, Epiphany is that great moment where light enters the darkness and where Christ is revealed in His true nature. And
we all
it's
get
a big
chosen.
feast.
We all get chosen.
That's right. We all get chosen, but it's not in the same way that the Jews were chosen.
Right, exactly. Right. The original chosen. And then, of course, by adoption, as Paul reminds us in the reading that we hear today, all of us, Gentiles and Jew alike, are able to be gathered to the Jesus who manifests Himself to all men and all women and all Kathleens, you see. So,
Yes.
So really, this is one of my favorite feasts of the year, if I can say.
I like it a lot.
Yeah. I remember, and this may sound positively pedestrian, but I remember, and it wasn't that long ago, when I discovered the meaning behind the gifts
Yes.
of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And it still blows me away. In fact, the parishioners are probably getting tired of me mentioning it every year.
I discovered that a couple years ago and mind blown. And I was reminded of it today in the homily.
That's right, Jeff. Do you know about the gifts, what their signification is?
I was going to say, why don't you enlighten us? Because,
so glad you asked. Gold is a gift for royalty. It's kind of a tribute, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff, if you were a king and I were another monarch, I would come to your court and I'd offer you gold as a way of saying, Jeff, I recognize your sovereignty over your people. Here's something from my treasury for your treasury. You see?
Yes.
So, yeah. Father, frankincense is an important one, too.
Right, frankincense is symbolic of, well, a lot of stuff. I actually preached about. I told the dramatic telling of the story from tradition about Prince Caspar and and then the wise man Melchior and the tall man Balthazar and all the different symbolism associated with the gold and the frankincense and the myrrh and what is frankincense? It's tree sap and just kind of all the wonderful symbols, and it was nice. It was fun.
Yeah, and so frankincense being this offering to a deity. Really, it's incense that we offer to a god, and so they brought that to him. And then, of course, myrrh. Myrrh is not just something that you get at the perfume counter, Kathleen.
Oh, shoot.
But the wise men were actually being fairly prophetic in their gift of myrrh to this newborn king, because it's myrrh that's used as a burial spice.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of alluding to what would happen to Jesus, so that this introductory Gentile experience would actually be cracked wide open on the day of his resurrection and whatnot. It just blows me away. I love our faith for that reason. Absolutely love it. And I use love the way that you should use the word love. I love our Catholic faith. So in addition to the three gifts and the three wise men, there are other types of commemorations and traditions that really long predate the 12 days of Christmas. And so there were some things. Did you have, Kathleen, for example, the blessing of chalk?
I know about it, but we didn't. I've never practiced it. I've never done it.
I meant to bring some blessed chalk. I had some because we blessed it in my parish today, and I handed out to the parishioners, and they have a little prayer in there so that they can scribble the inscription above their door and offer their prayer as they do. Do you know about that, Jeff?
I do not.
Really?
I'm sorry.
Father Ryan, he doesn't know about the chalk.
What?
I know. He doesn't know about the 3 seashells or the chalk. I know.
And I've been Catholic for a while, too.
Yeah, I know. Well, the chalk is blessed, and it's used to inscribe the Epiphany blessing, which in Latin, Christus benedicat mansionem, Christ blesses this house, which also happens to be the first letter of the three wise men, Caspar, Balthazar, Melchior. And so there's this connection there that as Christ manifests himself on the Epiphany, we invite him into our homes to manifest himself within our family unit and under our roofs. And so I bless chalk every year. I give them the prayer, and they go unto their homes and write over last year's blessing. Yeah. And then, of course, there's also the blessing. Now, Father Ryan, I would love to see this done, the blessing of gold, incense, and myrrh.
Yeah, I know a couple of priests who actually just have very small, kind of groups of each and bless them. And they're separate in the old ritual. So you can actually, if you have like a gold ring or something, you can just have that blessed, or you can bless the incense for the parish. And of course, nowadays myrrh is used as much like incense, So it's fairly straightforward. But I've never used this blessing before.
No, it sounds neat though. I always like a new blessing, kind of like a new scarf. The blessing of Epiphany water. Now this I know nothing of, Father.
Well, Epiphany water actually is the original root of the chalk, is that the bishop would bless the Epiphany water, and then of course he would go around and sprinkle it in everybody's homes. And as the church grew, and the bishop wasn't just basically the local pastor anymore, then he had to say, well, okay, well, what, priests, you can bless the water too. And then the priest would bless, and he went to every home and blessed every individual house on Epiphany. And as the church grew and grew, it became necessary to do something different because the priest couldn't physically get to everybody's homes.
Right.
And that's kind of where the chalk, kind of arose, was, okay, well, we will bless the chalk, and then the people will take the blessing. So the water was blessed, then you bless the chalk with the water. But in the new book of blessings and wishes, as I call it, the blessing of Epiphany water, I don't think it's there.
I don't recall it being there. I don't even think there's a blessing of chalk. I don't think.
And in the old ritual that I use, there is a blessing of Epiphany water, but it's restricted to the bishop with the bishop's permission. And so not a lot of bishops are super excited about giving that permission. And so generally, I just bless chalk with regular holy water, and that'll have to do.
Sure.
It'll do.
That's right. It'll have to do. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Epiphany, even in our own church in the West. And I don't know. Do you feel maybe, Father, that this feast kind of gets undersold?
Yeah, definitely. Given that it's moved around and no longer a holy day of obligation, and granted, there's a lot of holy days of obligation on top of each other. It'd be very difficult to have yet another one a week later.
Yeah.
But it does get lost because for us, we're so tired of celebrating Christmas by the time we get to Christmas that we don't want to keep the octave. We don't want to keep the 12 days. And so, by the time we're done with New Year's, we're like, God, just let it be over. We're just sick and tired of anything.
Right.
And so the baptism of the Lord falls away. The Holy Family tends to be ignored. And, of course, Epiphany is lost to our exhaustion as well. It's sad.
It is. And so I say, Jeff Blackwell, resurrect Epiphany.
We should.
Yeah. I mean,
I think you just started.
Yeah. Bring your chalk. Well, I think that's important.
Yeah.
I do too.
It's the whole idea of it
Epiphany,
being.
we've got to stop celebrating Christmas during Advent. That's the great struggle.
That's
how
very
you
true.
save Epiphany.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna talk about. Is I wrote in my Christmas cards Happy Advent because they all went out before Christmas, and I got one back that said, I am so glad that you said Happy Advent, and it's still being December in the teens. And just that's something that I've been focusing on the past couple years. Advent being Advent.
Intentionally celebrating the season you're in.
And then Christmas being Christmas. And this whole idea of waiting. That's been the theme this year of waiting, wait, and then celebrate.
What does that do for you personally to having done this and paying special attention to it?
It makes the season, so like when you get to Christmas, it's the idea that, all these feasts that do come up are that much more power packed, I guess, is what, you're waiting for this time of celebration. And really Advent is not a time of celebration, although we have Christmas parties and all this. And, but Advent is a time of waiting. And so I don't celebrate a lot. And then when Christmas comes around, it's like, oh yeah, it's on now because it's Christmas, Holy Family, Epiphany, boom.
And the thing I like about it too is you read a lot of the same gospel readings during the season. If you're hitting those feasts and as I say, if you're playing the home game, right? If you're going to those masses during the Christmas season, if you're going to some of the masses perhaps in daily mass, we read the same readings a lot, but it takes on this kind of pinpoint focus because today we read an account that could have been read at one of the Christmas Day masses. But it's the wise men encountering. And so you really do get the sense of being within an octave. Yeah. It's almost, you're reading the same reading over and over and over again, not because of monotony, but because you're in the same day.
Right.
And so you're just kind of taking it's kind of like a little pull quote, if you will, liturgically. And you're able to spend time with that sentence, kind of like what you should be doing with poetry, right? Good poetry as well. Is you spend time, I guess the secular word might be meditating upon the stanza. We do that with Scripture as well. We should in our own personal time with Scripture. But liturgically, we also do it, which I think is just a really beautiful thing. And then, of course, Father, there's something that I forgot to do, I have to say, the announcement of the movable feasts.
I still had a little cough, and the announcements of the movable feast is not an easy thing to chant.
No, it's not.
It's I find it's much easier to chant from square notes than it is from round notes.
Yeah.
And I printed out the one that Cafe Press or Chant Cafe had put together, and I've practiced it a couple times, and I said I've got too much of a cough. There's no way I'll survive this piece of music.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't do it, but it's gorgeous. Of course, it doesn't make sense now because we just passed out calendars for our parish. So
that's
we really need to sing when Easter is going to be. I mean, but
yeah, nowadays it's just kind of a neat thing to do.
It's a beautiful tradition because it's the conclusion of the Christmas.
Yeah.
The Christmas one, you chant this, and it's kind of these are the eternal things, and then this is now it's time for ordinary time to get started again. So everybody, stop with the celebrating and get down to actually being a saint day to day.
That's right. Taylor in the chat room says, I think this year was the first year that I really felt I was waiting, but not for like Christmas to be over and get presents, but actually Christ's birth. I was really excited during the Christmas Vigil Mass because I was so excited. Well, there you go. You see, that's what happens. You get excited, anticipation builds, and that is part of what it means to be Catholic, to fast and feast with the Church. Because when we do that, we actually are entering into this mystical life of Christ in Advent, waiting for him, in Christmas, sitting with his family in the manger, and then at Epiphany, welcoming the wise men. We actually become players, if you will, in that great salvation history drama.
I was pressured this year to put the baby Jesus in my nativity scene.
Oh, did your puppy persuade you?
No,
to?
I'm a my cousin was like, "Can we just put it? Can we just put him in there?" And I said, "No, we're waiting." She was like, "I know, but Jesus is here." I said,
But now.
"Not yet."
I want an Oompa Loompa now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So hopefully you had a mind and spirit blowing Christmas season and Epiphany season. If you did, maybe let us know on our Facebook page or at backchat@catholicunderground.com. You are listening to the Catholic Underground. We are online at CatholicUnderground.com. I'm Father Chris Decker. We've got Father Ryan Humphreys, Jeff Blackwell, Kathleen Lee, and Mary Kate Taylor. We have been talking about the Epiphany season. Our picks of the week are coming up a little bit later. But first, we want to talk about something happening in the tech world. And that is usually, like Kathleen has, her brand new Kindle Fire HDX that she got for Christmas.
So excited.
And normally when there's a new device, app downloads.
I did have to fill my Kindle with
apps.
With apps.
Right, yeah. But even that is sliding this year, Father. It's not as something's wrong. And Kathleen, did you? I mean, you filled up your
I
Kindle.
did, and once I got it, I thought, well, what else can I do with it? And that's what I love about it. But according to Mashable.com, the slowing growth rates and smaller Christmas Day app downloads spike signal market maturation.
Oh, so we've kind of reached what the maturation cycle. So the wine is at vintage.
Yes, it is ripe for the picking. But so it would seem that apps have left the status of fads or the new cool thing and have become commodities.
I would love to see an app commodities market. In fact, I don't know. Father, do you think we're close to that?
No, because each app still has something to allow it to customize itself. Corn is corn, but we don't have commodities for things like cars because everybody wants their own particular flavor. And I think apps are always going to be that way. But this article, it's a telling thing because it means most of the people who are going to have a tablet have a tablet.
Yeah.
And they've bought most of the apps they want to buy, and now they're just downloading them to their new devices. And we're kind of saying, well, I've got the apps I want. I'm not really interested in buying a whole lot more. I mean, I'll come across a couple as I need them.
Yeah.
But most people I think have kind of settled on the ones they want. And that's not particularly good news for app developers who have been in a bubble for the last 4 years.
Right. I guess really the only thing that we can see in terms of innovation perhaps would be games and different types of games.
There's always going to be something in terms of games, but even then, there's only so much you can do with, twisting the device or leaning it forward or tapping on it or looking at it or looking away from it or speaking nasty to it. Or, what are you supposed to do at a certain point? Games are games, but until there's a real hardware evolution, games are about as evolved as they're going to be. Someone may have a new idea, but
it uses the existing architecture.
Yeah, can I throw one out, Alex?
Yeah.
Can I throw one out at you here?
I believe you may.
Father Ryan, I actually, it just so happened yesterday that I actually over the weekend I've been working on a project, and it's from a video game maker out in L.A.
Oh, can you tell us?
I can tell you a little bit about it.
Okay.
I won't disclose the name of it. I'll tell you it's a medical app, and it's in cartoon form, and it's for kids and adults alike to better educate you about a specific, I could tell you, diabetes.
Oh, okay.
So, but it is treated just like a video game. However, my point is one of the guys that I was talking to with the team who do the production and animation said that they have been toying with something, and they already have it available now. You can go to Gettysburg, and they will rent you a iPad. And you take this iPad and you do this guided tour.
Oh, yeah, you walk around the
car.
town.
But when you get out of the car, there's this screen, not a screen, but it's almost like
a dock?
a gel or something that comes in over. You see the real terrain. And the guy said you can even see cars passing in the background, but you see what was actually taking place back in the 1800s.
Oh, it's an augmented reality screen.
Thank you. That's what it was, he said.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow. And they're already planning other places, historical places throughout New England, and of course it's wide open to be used in the world. But I thought, wow,
Kathleen,
there's another use.
Let's get our plane tickets.
I am
Road trip.
going.
Yeah.
Look, for you guys may be techie nerds, but when it comes to history,
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. So
Yeah.
that
that's awesome.
I want to. Let's go right now.
I think-
Extend my break. I'm ready.
I think we should just pile in after the show and go to Gettysburg. I think that's an awesome idea. Kathleen, do you have any apps that are new because of the Kindle that you downloaded, or just the ones that you normally would use
just the ones that I normally have used. In fact, the majority of ones that I found on Kindle, I was like, "Ooh, look at this!" I have them on my iPhone.
I see.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that, Father, you mentioned that it's really not until the hardware evolves that we'll see new types of applications. So are we just waiting for the next Steve Jobs to tell us what we need?
Yeah, I really feel like we are. I feel like we're waiting for somebody to say, a meaningful evolution. Google Glass doesn't seem like it's going to be the thing. There's some motion in the implantable chip, just basically connect to the mind node world.
Yeah, mind node.
But we've kind of reached as far as we can go, and of course there's going to be small incremental developments, but that's not the same thing as a new kind of app bubble. And that's what the article's getting at, is that the slowing growth rates mean that the market is stabilizing, and frankly, it's hard to make money when your market is stabilizing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and let me
So I think we are waiting for a new Steve Jobs to give us something new that can cause the market to accelerate again.
And by the way, these developers, Father Ryan, were talking about they don't think Google Glass has peaked yet, that there is a market for it. Now, I don't know exactly how it'll be used or if it's going to change as far as the hardware, but they're still kind of counting on this for some of this technology.
And that, I guess that could be the new hardware, right? That has apps developed for it. And boy, are we going to have a bunch of Aber zombies walking around.
I know, and I don't like Google Glass personally, and we've talked about that.
I haven't used it. I'm afraid that if I do use it, I'll like it because I'm a bit of a technophile. But but luckily the price point's a little high for little old priests like me. So yeah, I don't think we'll have to worry about that. Now, also in movie news, the Peter Jackson franchise that is The Hobbit. Bruce Fronin at Crisis Magazine thinks that Peter Jackson may have slipped down the rabbit hole. Because I don't know if you know, Kathleen, but this is a three-parter. The Hobbit thing here is a three-part. I believe it's a three-parter. Are they breaking the third part into two, Father Ryan, or is it just three?
No, it's going to be 3 total movies. He wanted to make a trilogy out of a
a
200-page book.
So,
Yeah.
I was about to say.
so that puts the Hobbit series at what, like 20 now? There's 20 movies now.
They're just about. You mean the whole Lord of the Rings franchise? Yeah, that's the thing that I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable. The movies are beautiful.
They are beautiful.
The color correction is breathtaking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Father, I don't know. I haven't seen the second one yet, and I'm going to be honest with you. There's nothing compelling me to go see it other than it's going to be pretty.
Yeah, I think it's going to be delightfully beautiful, and maybe the story will have some value on its own. But I don't. And a lot of people have argued, sort of like the Hunger Games, that the second one really did a good job of fixing the mistakes made by the first one. But man, the Hobbit book doesn't deserve this kind of torture, and
well put.
I mean,
because I loved the book.
Oh, the book is delightful, but the book is a tale. It's
I love
not an
the
epic, it's a tale.
I love the Rankin Bass cartoon. That was just one cartoon.
Yeah. But that's what makes it work, is that this is something you tell around the bonfire. You tell the story of, okay, so you have Frodo, and you have the spiders, and you have the wood elves, and you have the barrels, and you have Smaug, and then you have the Battle of the Five Ways, and we're done.
Mm-hmm.
You've invested an afternoon reading it. It's not an epic tale. It's not the Lord of the Rings at 2,000 pages. And so trying to force it to become that, or trying to force it to be a prequel, it's just, no matter how beautiful it is, it's all style and no substance, and that's sad.
And that makes for not always a good movie if it's all style and no substance. It makes for a great magazine article, but not.
And New Zealand is where these are all shot, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's Peter Jackson's home, so he didn't have to travel very far to go shoot a movie.
That's true. The commute is rather small.
In the article, Frauenheim says that James Cameron is actually shooting a three movies, all of them together as sequels for Avatar.
Oh dear.
So I mean, we're talking about Avatar 2, 3, and 4 all being shot in New Zealand. I mean, this is insane.
Is there going to be
Avatar
time
was
travel?
A terrible movie the first time.
The only thing that would make the Avatar stuff is there was time, like if it were the Back to the Future, but with Avatar.
Well,
That's the only reason you shoot
Avatar
them all
was
at the same
another one
time.
that was beautiful, but the story was so heavy-handed.
Yeah.
And so just, and what made Tolkien's Hobbit so good is the story is so light. It's so airy. And even though there's darkness at every moment, there's death left, right, and center, the story remains airy, and it remains sweet, and it remains this kind of gentle tale that you can chuckle along with Frodo, even as he's carrying the Arkenstone in his pocket, and you know that if this guy found out, he'd chop his head off with his axe. And yet here it's this light kind of airy piece that kids get a sense of. And what Jackson's done has weighed it down so much that it's really just a tedious. I mean, the first movie, I can't even imagine watching the second one.
Yeah, it's one of those things where he's almost lost the reason that, not that I know necessarily what Tolkien's intent was for The Hobbit, but it seems like he's divorcing himself and trying to make everything a blockbuster.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, yikes. We saw that with Spider-Man 2 and 3.
Yeah, you're seeing that a lot with these, with these movies that could be one good, just put that on the top 10 list, and they want to make 6 of them. Or they want to take the third book and make it into 12 movies, and it's like, no, just one good movie.
That's right.
If you do it right, you don't have to do 12. Just do it right the first time.
That's right. And Bobby informed me it was indeed a kid's story, and it should be. And we're kind of making it an adult story that adults can watch. But if the substance of the thing is one thing, it's hard to make it another. This is what
happens though when you're not in love with the material, you're in love with the money that comes from the material.
Oh.
Because Tolkien, I mean, Jackson could have made one movie, and it would have been astounding. But you can just see the people backing him going, yeah, but if you make 3, we can make $1 billion.
Also, we can get Benedict Cumberbatch.
Well, who doesn't want him? But but you can just see that's what's happening. When he wanted to do the first one, it was a labor of love. He said, I want to make this. And so he was so careful. He only cut things that had to be cut. He only added things that really were necessary.
Yeah.
And here you see he still loves the material, but he doesn't love it enough, and so he's willing to sell it to the highest bidder. And it really, it's going to be remembered as an embarrassment after the first great epic, trilogy. It's sad.
And we continue with Father Ryan's curmudgeoniness with a bit of a rant from the CU Science curmudgeon, who is on staff. He is, in fact, our own Father Ryan Humphreys.
Get off my lawn.
I was about to say, you need to do that in that 1950s science film guy voice,
You children, get off my lawn.
It's the miracle acrylic bubble that makes it possible.
So I've been reading, obviously I read a lot. I do most of the articles for the show and read probably, 100 to 200 headlines a day. And, I read a lot. But it's becoming more and more apparent to me that the scientific community can be bought and sold. Stories of doctored data and manipulated statistics. I mean, from the UN, from our own government, from the accounting office, and all sorts of offices in our government and in our world and our colleges, from economics to climate science to psychology, the entire system of peer review and scientific journalism and scientific objectivity. From where I'm sitting is dead. There's nowhere you look and you say that person is above reproach. That journal is above reproach. Now, some might disagree, but I think that disagreement can only come from one of 3 directions. One, there's the ad hominem or the personal attack, where you say, if I don't believe dogmatically that the world is headed toward catastrophic climate change, then I'm a climate denier. Or if I don't believe dogmatically that Darwin was visited by the same angel that visited the early Mormons, then I'm either a flat earther or a creationist. Or if I don't believe the psychology that homosexuality and heterosexuality are psychologically identical, then I'm either a bigot or a homophobe. It's like it's impossible.
The personal attack.
That's right. It's impossible to have, just a logical reason. It means I'm a jerk if I don't buy into what the general opinion is. The second argument that tends to happen when people, kind of argue is say, well, there's the argumentum ad populum, the argument that everybody agrees with the science, and so you're an idiot for not. So if I present scientific data, which I've done more than once, which calls global warming and evolution or the LGBT agenda into question, then I'm simply a fool because 100% of credible scientists agree. Well, who gets to decide who's credible or not? It's the people already, in the crowd.
I think it's the American Dental Association.
4 out of 5 dentists agree
Sneaky.
on everything.
That's right. For 4 out of 5 dentists who actually eat toast, this is the best toast there is. Yeah.
And then the third route, is that people will actually take the time to engage the science. But that almost never happens because if someone even admits the possibility that dogmas like global warming, evolution, homosexuality might be flawed, if they even admit the possibility to have a discussion, then they're committing heresy. And so what has science in these politically correct areas become? And what I struggle with is more and more areas are being politically correctified.
Mm-hmm.
So it used to just be where you'd say, okay, well, Darwin and evolution, you're not allowed to talk about that. Then it was global cooling, but global cooling didn't turn out, so it was global warming, and now we know global warming is a joke, and so now it's climate change.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, we have the psychology field being taken over in the last 30 years by the LGBT agenda. And then you have the genetics field being taken over. And now we're not allowed to talk about economics anymore because if you don't agree with economics, then that makes me some kind of, I'm a hard-hearted, evil person. And so my concern and my question to ask you guys is, what is the role of science when it's become so dogmatic that the scientific method and simply asking questions is no longer allowed? What do we do? What do we do as Christians?
One of the things that this reminds me of is often how the church is painted, with the time of the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition and all of the things that we usually get knocked for. The notion that it wasn't okay to ask questions because it was better for you this way. It seems like that's what we're kind of resorting to in the scientific community. Is that we've made a decision as a kind of nebulous scientific body, and you're not allowed to ask questions because there's a lot of stuff that's tied into the answer that we give. Right? There's marketing that's tied in. There are products that are being created that's tied into this, and so I think that there's something there. There's kind of this inquisition that does seem to be forming. And it isn't to get at the truth. I mean, say what we will about the Spanish Inquisition, nobody expects them. And it was an attempt to get at the truth, the actual capital T truth. I don't know that this is actually an attempt in the scientific community to get at capital T truth. Would you say that's accurate?
I think that your point about having how it's about buying and selling a product, and just using whoever it takes to make that product necessary or required, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing that gets me. You're gonna call it what it is. Call it. Well, we want to sell these climate change related products, or we want to sell this lifestyle that will be very marketable, from the fashion industry, from food industry, from whatever. And so we need you to buy into that, and so we're creating a dogmatic system that you can't question, and we do it politically as well. I would say, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think there's some correctness to this that's not politically correct. It's just it's one of those things where what happens whenever you kind of bow to a dollar or you bow to a person who can either buy or sell you. That's the thing.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, on a side note, because Father Ryan mentioned the global warming aspect. Did you see a story this week? It came out about these global warming scientists down in Antarctica that are trapped in the ice.
I saw that.
They've had several ships come in to try to help them get out, and they're stuck in the ice studying global warming.
Yeah.
And the irony is, if you go to most of the articles I've read about it, are very, very careful not to mention what they're studying. I went to even something, some kind of middle of the road thing like CNN.com, and you have all these stories about these icebreakers, and they go, look at these poor scientists up there studying the North Pole, and they're very, very careful to say they're not climate scientists. They're just people.
Well,
they don't
just
mention
people.
at all that these are climate scientists. And of course,
I
the
thought it was
irony is so
South Pole.
thick. How do you not?
Yeah.
Thick as the ice they're trapped in.
I thought it was the South Pole. Is it the Arctic or Antarctic?
One's northern.
Yeah, Arctic is north, Antarctica is south.
Well, you
What the
want
heck?
to know.
But
Very
anyway,
need to know.
cold.
They're trapped in the ice.
I think that's part of it,
all we
Jeff.
need to
We
know.
don't want you to know exactly where they are. Although the thing I find that's really funny is that I don't know if they've been airlifting them in, but I listen to the BBC World Service a lot.
Yeah?
There are BBC journalists on this ship,
Oh, really?
and they're Skyping in. They're Skyping in from the Antarctic.
Man.
It is the Antarctic because an Australian ocean liner, or not ocean liner, an Australian rescue ship had to take them out. So, yeah. And of course, what do you do whenever there's also media attached to it, right? Mm-hmm. Kathleen, sick 'em.
I will. If I could get out there, which not very many people can.
That's right.
Hence the reason they're stuck.
There you go. So with that, let's just take a bit of a breather here. Alrighty, you're listening to the Catholic Underground. I'm Father Chris Decker. Father Ryan Humphreys joins us. Kathleen Lee, Jeff Blackwell.
I am enjoying this music.
You like that?
It's not new, huh?
No, not new. Yeah.
It's a new year.
And Mary Kate Taylor, she's on the camera if you're watching us on the video feed there. And we've been curmudgeoning a little bit. But right now, because it is a new year, we want to talk about New Year's resolutions. It's a new year. And so we asked you on our Facebook page, what are some of the New Year's resolutions that you are making? And Doug and Dolly D'Antonio say to try and incorporate the 7 daily habits of holy apostolic people. And that is, in fact, a little book here that include things like the morning offering, spiritual reading, the Holy Rosary, Mass and Communion, 15 minutes of mental prayer, the Angelus. So they're going to try and incorporate those into their lives.
That's cool.
Yeah, Beth says, I'm going to try to that trick where you save $1 the first week, $2 the second week, $3 the third week, and so on until you have over $1,500 by the end of the year. That's vacation money.
Heyo.
There you go. James says, to be more forgiving and patient with difficult people. That's a very good resolution to have. And then Gisette says, to encourage others. That's a very simple one, but a very good one.
Yeah, something we don't always think about. I don't really think about that.
Yeah, just to encourage, to be a positive player in somebody's life. Of course,
I like
you
that.
form young minds.
I do.
That's right. You slice through the ice.
But I am not always encouraging.
Yeah, well.
I am not.
Tough love sometimes, Kathleen? Is that
A
what
lot
it
of
is?
the times.
Yeah, well, hopefully our New Year's resolutions involve getting more involved also in our local parish. And that is the point of an article from the folks at Corpus Christi Watershed. The article is "What Hill Are You Willing to Die Upon?" is the name of the article. And it's basically tells the story of a liturgical musician who comes into a parish who has been singing music from the 1980s, and there, the friction that comes about when trying to move a parish in a maybe a little bit different direction. The telling thing is whenever you call music from the 1980s contemporary, right? And so, what should the liturgical minister do? The music minister do to maybe forward the movement into a more organic understanding of music in the liturgy? And when should you say, okay, we're not ready for this yet? So maybe I just need to back away slowly a little bit. Catholicism, of course, we know is not a private, personal relationship between God and me and my Bible. It's a faith that's linked to a community of believers, like Judaism. The notion of gathering at the base of the mountain where God will appear. That one of the very first notions of ecclesia is that. And we also know that within our Catholic faith and within the world that we live, there's hierarchy. There's specialization, there's a familial aspect, and that family is expressed in most of our lives, not just at our dinner table, but at our local parish church. In fact, Chris Williston from Austin Catholic New Media continually blows me away. You're a good dad, Chris. Chris actually said that he has tried to make his parish church the third place. So he'll bring his kids there after school. He'll, anytime there's a little time that they have to kill, They might go there as a meeting point or something like that. And to really understand that there is a family aspect of our local parish church. It's in that parish church that we're forgiven of our sins in the confessional, where we receive the Holy Eucharist, where we're instructed in our Catholic faith, where we're encouraged in the Christian life, and it's also where we meet people who drive us bonkers and give us opportunities at being virtuous, just like some of our Facebookers are doing there in the chat room. And of course, for lay people, it's in that parish church that we find our spiritual father, Christ among us. It's our parish priest who acts as an alter Christus. Now, it's worth saying, Father, that we are flawed human beings who make mistakes ourselves.
I'm especially flawed and make lots of mistakes.
I can vouch for the truth of this. But yeah, I'm also not perfect. So the parish is the ideal place to strive for holiness and to contribute personal gifts and to contribute ideas, and the direction of that are the fruit of our personal prayer. And so, as I said, Andrew over at Corpus Christi Watershed has an article about, quote, choosing which hill to die upon, basically choosing our battles in the parish. And so we thought we might talk a little bit about it. How do we decide which battles to fight in parish life and which ones to let go? This is a good New Year's resolution. Father Ryan, you would say you have to ask yourself first, is it a matter of style or of substance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a list maker. And
yes, he
so
is.
I've got my three kind of criteria, because I mean, I think that the first of any of it, separate from my list even, is you've got to be willing to fight, because you've got to be willing to stand up and say, here's what my family needs spiritually, here's what I need spiritually. If I know that my biggest struggle in the parish is that my people rarely tell me what they need. And so I'm really kind of guessing, even at this bigger parish, there's some people who come in to complain and bicker, but almost nobody comes and says, Father, this is what I need from you. Mm-hmm. So that's, you need to stand up. You need to fight the battles, because this is part of how the church has always operated. But I've got a list of three criteria, I think, when it comes to choosing between battles. Yep. Number one, you have to ask yourself, is this disagreement I have with somebody about a style or substance? If the battle is about someone teaching error, the CCD teacher is teaching that everybody goes to heaven, you've got to fight it. Even if that person is the pastor from the pulpit saying sin is not a thing, you need to fight it. If the battle is about someone disobeying the law of the church, you've got to fight it. But if the battle is over my preference of I prefer this hymnal and you prefer that one, you don't have to fight it. And that's when you switch to criteria 2. You say, am I convicted about this because of my opinion is the fruit of my prayer, or because I just hate that song and I hate that woman who tries to sing soprano and she can't, and if she would just stop singing soprano, it would sound so much better.
Yeah.
And then I think the third criteria is you say, well, you have to ask yourself, have I prayed for the person that I'm going to have this argument with? So number one is this really something that matters, or is it a matter of style? Number 2, is my opinion the fruit of prayer? And number 3, have I prayed for the person with whom I'm going to have this disagreement? And if you can say it's a matter of substance, then you've got to go for it. If you can say this opinion of mine is the fruit of prayer, then you've got to go for it. And you say I've spent time praying for the person who I'm going to disagree with, then you've got to go for it.
Yeah, that actually, that's a good little delineation, right? That's a good hierarchy of making a good moral judgment about whether or not you should exercise what we would call in social teaching the principle of subsidiarity, right?
I mean, just the notion of am I dealing with this where it needs to be dealt with, or am I trying to be bigger than my britches?
And I think oftentimes we don't really consider number 2. Is this the fruit of prayer?
Yeah, that's the easiest one to skip over, because we may feel very, very strongly about it, and then not realize that this is not really that big of a deal. This is just me being wound up because it's pushing a button in my life. That's
right. Does this resonate, Kathleen? It's funny because Father Ryan and I have a unique position on the other side of the altar, as it were.
Right.
But for Joe and Jane Catholic in the pew, you're actually the one sitting next to your brothers and sisters.
Yeah, and as someone who knows a little bit about what's going on, there have definitely been times, and I was a musician in the church for a while as well, and there have definitely been times as a younger person, and it's a weird position to be a young, lay, educated in theology, to have to to have to take those moments where you go, this is wrong teaching.
Yeah.
And then to be able to assert yourself in a kind and mature, way so that you don't sound like, a pompous little, little child coming up and saying, well, you people have been doing this wrong for 20 years. But it's a weird position to be in. And you're right. I've definitely had to look at those battles and say, is this something that is a preference?
Yeah.
Or is this something that could be damaging to people's faith life?
Yeah, and that as a priest, that's one of the first lessons that I learned as a new pastor, is that there are battles worth fighting, but the timeline of the battle is not something that I have control over in every case. And if I'm not bringing it to prayer, I may be convicted about it emotionally, but if the conviction doesn't come from the Holy Spirit, then I'm going to mess it up.
Yeah.
And, again, maybe a battle worth fighting, but if I'm not taking it to prayer, if I'm not bringing it to adoration, if I'm not bringing it before the Lord, if I'm not bringing it before my parish council in some instances, and seeking counsel from every wise man, as Tobit would tell us to do, then, we can become kind of these as the chat room has been saying, are you saying that being a mass snob is bad? Well, in a sense, it can be. Not that you're wanting the liturgy to be celebrated correctly, but sometimes we can get so caught up, perhaps, in what our ideal is, that all we talk about is maybe what's wrong in the liturgy or what's wrong in our parish, and we stop seeking to be instruments of being able to bring, shall I say, an epiphany where it ought to be. Father, I know that it's difficult in every parish.
It is. It's always a challenge to really say, Lord, what is it that you want? Because we are so caught up in our own stuff that it's easy to completely miss what God is saying. And that's, of course, a great challenge for every Christian. Always has been. We're human beings. And so we have to constantly be saying again, Lord, is this what you want? Is this what you want? And, of course, we have to remember people like Margaret Mary Alacock and Faustina Kowalska, who, the Lord says, this is something I want a lot. And it takes years to get that painting made, or it takes years to get the miraculous medal made. And you just kind of have to go, okay, that's what the Lord wants, and I will work slowly and diligently to do well and listen as much as I possibly can.
And there is tremendous, and I don't use this word lightly, there's tremendous blessing in that, in letting the Lord guide the timeline, because all of these issues that we have within our parishes, they're actually, you said it early on, Father, they're actually means for our sanctification if we do it right.
Absolutely.
If we enter into it with the right intentions and with prayer. But we're also going to enter into something, because it's in the beginning of the year. It's what we call
the CU Pick of the Week.
And for our first CU Pick of the Week, Kathleen, do we want to go to you?
Oh, we can.
Go.
Yay. I picked this week, of course, my new Kindle Fire HDX.
You agonized about this a little bit.
Okay. I was in Denver visiting my brother, and he, my little nephew, was carrying around this little, I thought was it was a tablet, and he was watching Netflix on it, and I was like, Eric, my brother, I said, Eric, what is that? He said, it's the Kindle Fire. We got it for opening some kind of bank account. I said, so do you you can Netflix on that? And he said, yeah. And so he shows me all the stuff he can do on it. He can Skype. He can, it's a Kindle e-reader, Netflix, Hulu. There's, apps galore. And I thought, man, a couple years ago, I got the first edition Kindle, the one with the black and gray screen that just reads books.
The e-ink one.
Yeah, and it was great. But I put it away because I found the app I could put on my computer, and so I just carried it on my computer, and so this thing, I asked a couple of times. I shot some text to my tech guru over here.
I'm the tech guru.
Yes, and by the time we had landed back in Baton Rouge on the way home from the airport, I ordered it. I said, "This is it," because it does.
Wait, you ordered the Kindle from your iPhone?
Yeah. But for someone who is not tech savvy, and I don't need to do a lot of things, this is a great little tablet. It really is. I can Facebook, I can Skype, I can do most everything that I do on my tiny iPhone. on a little bit larger screen without having to carry around a computer. The only thing that it doesn't do is word processing, and I downloaded a notepad to do that. I can check my mail. It's just a really cool thing to be able to have. I actually read books on it. Who knew? But I really do love it. I kind of ignored the whole evolution of the e-reader, and then this one bit me. So
well, I'd like to be the first to say this has been Kathleen. I want to induct you into
the CU World of Technology.
Awesome! I've waited my whole life for this.
I don't have a little trophy or anything to give you, but you have your Kindle.
Yay!
Well done, Father Chris.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's a new year.
Ew.
Jeff. Now you don't have a Kindle there, but you do always have a really cool.
Well, I love aviation. I've made that clear a lot of times here, but this is for when you have nothing better to do. It's a great website, and they also have an app for iPhones and Androids, but it's FlightRadar24.com. Flight Radar and the numbers 24.com. And you can track aircraft anywhere in the world.
Ooh.
And it's amazing just to just look at North America at how many airplanes are airborne at any one time. It's just literally thousands of them. But you can zoom in on an area. In fact, I was like zooming into San Diego the other day, and you could see planes. Now they're just little icons, but they're the ones that are in yellow I think are real time, and the ones that are in orange are their information is delayed. But you can actually watch them sitting there, and as they throttle up, you'll watch the speed go up, then their altitude, and they start climbing. And again, it's just fascinating that there are so many people going so many places all at the same time, and it's just fun to watch. And since we live down toward the Gulf Coast, you could even track, it'll track private planes. I don't know about military. I haven't seen any of those, but some planes are just, it'll be blocked. There'll be no information about them. But you can track helicopters too, flying at.
Some people bird watch. Jeff.
I'm just really tickled about this.
It's really cool. I wish I had my computer hooked up to the video feed, but I don't today. But that is really, really neat. So yeah, you can click on the plane, and all the info comes up about where the flight is headed, where it's going, because you have to log a flight plan.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so that's what it's using the FAA's flight plan, which I'm guessing is public data.
I suppose it is because you can access it. But you can tell that they'll have the make of the plane. They may not have any other information about where it's going.
Yeah.
But like private jets and stuff like that, they'll have the registration number and.
I've noticed I went to Wyoming a couple months ago to visit some friends, and the Delta app, because I was flying Delta.
Yeah.
The Delta app actually has a flight tracker built into it. So you can actually see,
neat.
If you're using the Wi-Fi on board, you can actually see where you are, and it's a really neat little thing.
And I haven't gotten it to work yet, but there's you can add on on a laptop or a computer the Google Earth app.
Yeah, you can switch to cockpit view.
Yeah, right.
I don't even know what to say to that. That's crazy talk. Really, really neat. Father Ryan, your pick of the week.
So I had the good fortune of watching a movie that's been sitting on my desk for a long time, and it is Joss Whedon of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Dollhouse, Serenity, Firefly, and the Avengers fame.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a couple weeks off, and as Joss Whedon is known to do, said, why don't we make a movie in the couple of weeks we have? So he rented this big house, and in like 2.5 weeks, they filmed out an entire movie, and it was a brilliant rendition of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. And at the center of activity is Amy Acker, who played Fred on Angel, and it is the guy who played Topher on Dollhouse, the guy who was who is the leader in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, and the guy who was in Dollhouse and played the security guy, and Alexei Denisov, Vampire Hunter. It is astoundingly good. I mean, I just cannot speak about how amazing this movie was, and it was laugh out loud funny. Nathan Fillion made his appearance. It was hysterical. I may watch it again tonight. It is the most accessible Shakespeare I've ever had access to. It is wonderful.
And it was shot,
do yourself a favor. Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing 2012.
It was shot in a house.
Yeah, just in a house. He rented a house, and it was beautiful, but he shot it in 2 weeks.
Yep, that's Joss Whedon for you. I wonder if they had a big Nerf war in a huge mansion after that.
Well, I can tell you what, they drink like mad. I mean, every scene, there's a glass of wine.
That's
or
very
a
Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's great.
And my pick of the week,
Yes.
I stumbled upon today, and it's no secret that those who draw, those who write, often get writer's block or artist's block. And there's a little web app, and it's actually an Android app too, so you could probably download it for your Kindle, Kathleen, called the Creativity Cards system. And so it's basically a little box, and you click randomize, and it will give you a thing that you could draw. So I click randomize, it says draw yourself in a medieval setting. If I click randomize again, draw using only 3 colors. Or draw your street after an apocalypse. So if you have a little bit of an artist block situation, then you can go and click randomize on this creativity card system, and it'll maybe jumpstart something.
Yeah, that very well could.
And I think that there are many different blogs on Tumblr and whatnot for those who write. So there's some different writing prompts. In fact, right now, if I can kind of go into something else as well, I'm presently doing the 0 to Hero 30 Days to a Better Blog promotion over at WordPress.com, and they have writing prompts every day, and I guess it's going to be 365 days or 30 days for the writer, the 0 to Hero bit, but they have 365 days of writing prompts and challenges for building a blog. So Kathleen, if you want to start blogging, that's a way to maybe to start doing it. So that's really cool. I'll put that in the show notes as well as a sub pick of the week. So those are our picks of the week. Let us know if you've got picks of the week. The best way to do that is to send them in at backchat@catholicunderground.com. Jeff.
Portions of Catholic Underground are brought to you by audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground. That's audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground.
That is correct, and we thank all of you, of course, for your patronage of the Catholic Underground, and also for those of you who have supported us over the past year, and especially for those of you, you know who you are, who got those last-minute donations in before January 1st rolled around. If you want the show notes, everything that we've talked about on this episode and the podcast, you can go over to CatholicUnderground.com. That's the best way to do it. Father Ryan's church is online at minorbasilica.org. He's at FR Humphreys on Twitter. Thank you, Father Ryan.
It has been my pleasure.
Jeff Blackwell is the tech director for the CU. He's the ruling despot at the Blackwell Communications Group. He's at Jeff Blackwellis on Twitter and jeffblackwell.us. Thank you, Jeff.
It is an honor, Father.
That's right. We've got Kathleen Lee. She is our faith ninja at Kathleen YABR. Thank you, Kathleen.
Anytime.
And Mary Kay Taylor is an evangelist, and in her spare time, she builds complex models of abstract ideas. Somebody's got to do it over there in the video cave. You know me, I'm Father Chris Decker. Follow me on Twitter at Digital Catholic. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us on the digital continent. We're Catholic Underground. We're Faith Gone Digital, and we will see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.